All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is All Things Crunchy. This is Mama Tribe After Dark, actually, too. It's nighttime. I got my wine. Where's yours? None.
I didn't bring any. I'm such a newbie.
Oh, come on. You're not a newbie. You've got tons of these hangouts under your belt. I'm just extra prepared this time.
Next time we'll do it live from the same room.
There you go. Oh my, I know. Who wants to drink wine by themselves?
I know, right?
Yeah, we don't. So this is All Things Crunchy, and we're going to talk about leaky gut. Here is my wonderful, beautiful expert guest, Francesca Orlando. Thank you for joining me, Mama.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Aw, thank you. Yes, it's always my pleasure. So the boy is with Daddy right now, so you have a little bit of time to hang out.
What the phone brings.
Yeah, there we go. And talk about probably a subject that gets brought up a lot in the business that you're in, being a nutritionist. Because that's what it is, NTP, nutritional therapist. Tell me what the NTP stands for.
Nutritional therapy practitioner.
Practitioner, okay.
Then I'm a certified GAPS practitioner, and then I'm board certified in holistic nutrition through the NANP, National Association of Nutrition Professionals.
Nice. Yes. So if you have issues, and even if you're not in San Diego, right? Because you do Skype, right?
Yeah, I had 7 patients today, and 4 were Skype and phone calls. So
nice. Awesome.
I work everywhere.
Yep, exactly. That's the thing. When you have that going on, it doesn't really stop. And it's probably with your client base, being moms and parents, I mean, that the time frame must fluctuate sometimes to fit everybody's schedule.
Yeah, we do work around naps often.
Nice.
I think the hardest one I have a client, they are 5 kids, and it's a beautiful family, and they were deployed in Japan for a while. That was the hardest. That time difference really was making it really tough for us to schedule, because I'd be up, it'd be bedtime there, or
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
I've done Japan, I do Europe, I do East Coast, I do Hawaii. So I have people, beautiful clients I work with. I'm blessed to work with them a little bit everywhere. So
yeah. Oh, awesome. So even if you're not in San Diego, check out Francesca. We've got her website showcased here in the Hangout. If you're watching us through Google, then you'll just click right over to it. You'll see it there on the right-hand side. We're showcasing my YouTube channel, so subscribe to that if you want to get all of my shows. And then below that is Healthful Living San Diego. That's Francesca's website, so check that out. I was browsing, as I do before the show, and see a lot of articles that I want to come back to on your blog and your site. So definitely check that out, you guys, because it's pretty awesome. And then below that was the last hangout that you and I did, which was the first hangout, I think. No, I think it was the second hangout that I did. But with you, Francesca, we did the Digestion 101, and that was an awesome one. That one's got a lot of views. So I know that it was liked by a lot of people, and we had some great information. So check that out if you haven't already checked it out. And like I said, it's in the Hangout. Since we are live, if you want to leave a comment, please feel free to write in the Hangout. If you're on Google, if you're watching us through YouTube, then you can just comment right below the video, and it'll load up to my phone, and I will read it or answer your questions. So let's get started here, if you don't mind there, Miss Francesca.
I'm ready when you're ready.
Awesome. So really, I think what we should start with is, let me bring up my nifty little prompt here. So what is leaky gut? I know a lot of people talk about it. I didn't know really what exactly it was until I started reading some of the articles that you sent me, the research to do for the show. And now I have all my notes here. I'm a really good note taker.
I'm impressed. Super impressed.
Thank you. It was fascinating actually reading about it. So I'm excited to get this information out there for the rest of you. So in your professional terms and explanation, what is it? What is leaky gut?
Well, and I will try to explain it as simply as I possibly can. But leaky gut is a term that stands for hyperpermeable intestines. Meaning that the surface of the small intestine has become porous or holes have been created. So
Right.
a couple of things to understand anatomically speaking is that the large intestine is the largest organ of the body. And if we were to spread our guts out on the ground, it would cover the surface of a tennis court. Okay, just to make you understand how large, how
Wow.
big the large intestine with all its folds and the villi and the microvilli, how big it is. Okay,
Yeah.
it is it is the second line of defense of the body in terms of the digestive system. The first line of defense being the stomach with its acidity, and that's something that we covered in the previous hangout that we did. But the small intestine is the first and the primary also side of the immune system. Okay, so it's extremely important that we maintain this lining intact. So when we have a hyperpermeable intestine, we are in trouble. So basically, the outer layers of the intestinal lining that are called epithelial cells are connected by structures that are called tight junctions. Okay, so those structures are kind of like, look at this, like tight. And what they do is they allow food particles that have been broken down mechanically and chemically through the digestive process to pass through the villi and microvilli of the small intestine, which sit on top of the epithelial lining as a brush, most like
Right.
the shape of a brush. It allows those villi and microvilli to massage those food molecules and absorb them into circulation through the capillaries. Okay, it's a very tight junction because only completely broken down particles should be allowed to pass through, so
Right.
that they can become nourishment and energy.
Right.
When we have a leaky gut, those tight junctions start to loosen up, they start to break down, and holes are poked into the lining. Okay, and molecules are allowed to pass through the intestinal lining at inappropriate sizes, becoming not anymore food and energy and nourishment, but an assault to the immune system. Since the Peyer's patches, which is one of the primary immune system resources of the body, is in the small intestine, and what those Peyer's patches do, they basically scan the food much like a barcode is scanned at a supermarket, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'll be like, okay, you are whatever, lysine, you go through. You are this thing, you go through. Okay, so what we do, we start interfering, first of all, with the Peyer's patch's job of scanning the food. And then once those molecules escape and enter the circulation in inappropriate sizes, then we have the other branch of the immune system, another branch of the immune system, and mostly white blood cells that start mounting an attack. So
Right.
this causes all sorts of symptoms. The issue about leaky gut is that not everyone who has leaky gut has digestive imbalances. Some people, Most do. Most will have, you know, an upset digestion, whether it shows in the bowels, in terms of diarrhea or constipation, whether it shows in bloating or maldigestion. But there's a lot of people who suffer from leaky gut, which manifests itself in another organ. And this is a very, probably the very reason why leaky gut is so undiagnosed and misdiagnosed in medicine, because you can have leaky gut, which manifests itself as arthritic pain or as an exacerbation of your arthritic pain. So the leaky gut is causing arthritis, or it is a component of your arthritis. You can have a leaky gut that causes skin issues in the form of hives, which is, you know, an immune reaction to these foods that have been maldigested, or it can cause eczema, psoriasis, acne. So it's very tough to, I mean, there's a couple of tests that can be done, lab tests that can be done to diagnose leaky gut. Another big one that I see in my practice, especially at, I also work for a beautiful clinic. It's an IOP intensive outpatient center, and it's called True Life Center for Health and Wellbeing. And I see a lot of mental cases. And major depression is one of the big conditions that are brought about or exacerbated by leaky gut.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that, like, we were talking about, as far as explaining about the how we actually get the leaky gut, that can go back to you know, when you were talking about when we did our hangout with digestion, and how we need to chew our food, and, you know, and break it down. Yeah, I mean, that it's just crazy, because it not only could be the food that we're eating, but it could be that we're not exactly
which we eat.
Yeah.
Well, so the other big factor about leaky gut that's that makes it stand, it gives it a, you know, it's a disease of its own in medicine, is that it can be caused by several factors. I don't know if you had a question about that on the hangout, but
you know, I think I kind of did the who, what, when, where, how, and you know, when you kind of were going over like what it can affect, and
let me also add that the food allergies and intolerances. When I was talking about one of the things that leaky gut brings is food allergies and intolerances, but it can also be caused by food allergies and intolerances. So it's a dog that bites its own tail. Yeah, let me know when you want me to get there.
Yeah, you know, definitely. I think that that was one of the things between what is leaky gut, and so what are the symptoms then of leaky gut? Because I think that's, you know, and you kind of touched on that a little bit, how it'll show up in other ways that we're thinking. Like when I really started researching this, I really thought it had to do with your gut. And when it comes down to it, like you said, it affects, you know, brain, skin, it could even affect your thyroid, adrenals. I mean, this is all over the place. This isn't just our stomach and, you know, our bowels. So yeah, definitely. Like let's talk about the symptoms of leaky gut.
It's big because it can be anything from, you know, the food allergies that we talked about. It could be bloating, it could be, you know, GI upset, it could be it is malabsorption. It's one of the issues of leaky gut, it's malabsorption. So nutrient starvation, basically. We can be ingesting plenty of calories, but if we cannot extract the nutrients out of it, the body is starved. Arthritis pain, so allergies, autoimmune disease, and another disease that goes hand in hand with leaky gut is celiac disease. And celiac disease, years of being undiagnosed with celiac disease can cause leaky gut, and a leaky gut can cause a celiac disease. Celiac disease, I'm sure you know, but I'm just gonna repeat it for our viewers who may not be well versed in that term. It's an allergy to a protein that is found in wheat, rye, and barley, and the protein, it's called gluten. which causes damage to the villi and microvilli of the small intestine, damage to the point of destroying the lining of the small intestine. And in fact, one of the old methods of diagnosing celiac disease is an intestinal biopsy. And unfortunately, it doesn't work because the only time that it proves to be positive, so it gives a real positive result, is when enough damage has been done to this villi and microvilli. So you could have an undiagnosed celiac disease that goes on for 10 years because your villi and microvilli are dying off slowly, but they're not destroyed to the point that the biopsy catches it.
And so is that, in that case, is that where gluten is still not being digested, but is being digested enough that it isn't giving symptoms to any certain person?
No, I believe that we do have the symptoms. We just go undiagnosed because they can be all sorts of symptoms. With gluten, again, we can have symptoms in the form of depression.
Right.
We can have symptoms that are associated with behavior and exacerbation of an ADHD component. Or, you know, I've seen it with bipolar disorder that it would give manic states every time the patient would be in contact with the gluten. So yes, usually you should see the physical symptoms in terms of gastrointestinal disturbance and diarrhea and wasting syndrome, because people who have celiac disease generally lose a lot of weight really fast.
Yeah.
Because of that malabsorption, but a lot in many subjects, it just doesn't show that way. Right. And, you know, celiac disease is another thing like leaky gut that medicine is slowly starting to come to terms with it. I mean, we've been trying to do celiac disease through biopsy diagnosis, but only recently we started using blood work to look for antigens and stuff like that. So. Right.
And see, this is the reason why people need to go to nutritional therapists. You know, when you have certain, I don't know, I mean, there is so many great things about the medical industry and Western medicine. It's awesome. But, you know, when I don't know, there's something about our diet and the things that we're surrounding ourselves with and the food that we're eating, you know, just if we're having issues, I think that nutritional therapy should be like the go-to first, because you can kind of get into the diet and what kind of stresses you're having. And they're not just nutritional therapy, they're actually kind of your whole life therapy to figure out, okay, what actually is going on that's creating all these symptoms, instead of just, oh, you have depression, well, let me give you a pill so that it'll make it go away. You know, you have eczema, let me give you a cream. You know, all these things that are basically, you know, alerts.
Approach.
Yeah. And our body is telling, you know, is saying that there is something wrong, but we have to go to the physicians that are actually going a little bit further and asking why, you know, and kind of getting to that point of it. So
the issue is that our medical model is a pathology-based model. It's not a health promoting model. So our physicians are trained to fix symptoms. You know, they're not trained to keep the body healthy. I have several physicians in my practice as clients, and, you know, they tell me, do you know how many units we do of nutrition in medical school? One hour, 1 unit. So if you go to your doctor for
that don't get any breastfeeding, you know, that's the main source of a baby's food for the first, hopefully, year or more. And pediatricians know nothing about breastfeeding. So, yes, I know that. Well, that's one of the things that I'm just, you know, I love nutritional therapists for that aspect, because it's not just about food. There's so many things that come into the reason why we have these symptoms. Right. So I know that we kind of talked a little bit about the, you know, where does it affect, but that it was just fascinating to me just to really kind of dig in and realize that this leaky gut just isn't, an upset stomach and, our digestive tract screwed up and our bowel movement screwed up and, anything else. There's so many other things. Cause when I read through all this stuff and I'm seeing pictures of like what the lining of our stomach looks like, it's understandable that if the foods don't break down or if we don't have the ability to break them down, that they're going to get through and then they're going to go to our body. And so of course it'll affect.
Well, and then it rots there too, because as you destroy the villi and microvilli, stuff stays there and it becomes rotten and putrefying and rancidifying, doing even more damage. There was a there was a very important study done in Belgium very recently about the impacts of leaky gut on chronic fatigue syndrome and major depression. And all of the patients evaluated in that study who suffer from those two conditions, so chronic fatigue syndrome and major clinical depression, had a significant leaky gut component. So the other part of the study was focusing on the treatment, and specific diet and nutrients were utilized to heal, and I'm looking at the study right now, to heal the leaky gut, and those not only reversed the laboratory signs of leaky gut syndrome, so they did more lab testing and it was gone, but they also dramatically improved the chronic fatigue syndrome, the malaise, and the depression. And if you know anyone with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I have quite a few in my practice, you really know that they are very they're miserable. It's extremely it's an excruciatingly saddening condition, because you don't have the energy to live your life.
You
don't have the energy
and I bet
it's another big umbrella of symptoms that people have gone from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, and they just couldn't figure them out, and then eventually they were labeled as chronic fatigue syndrome, which is probably just leaky gut plus other stuff going on. Can be a liver growth component, it can be a Lyme disease, it can be several things. It can be adrenal exhaustion.
And those people who are fatigued and aren't getting exercise and aren't probably eating the greatest diet, they probably are getting sick a lot, so their immune system is down. That's one thing that I noticed. Once I changed my diet to kind of like a modified paleo diet, even being around preschoolers all the time, like I, knock on wood, have not gotten sick, like a cold, even like a cold. I'm like, so it's crazy. But to me, that's the diet that I have. Having a clean diet is like so huge in helping my immune system along to be able to fight off these little germs that are coming. I'm coming in contact with a ton of them, but
of course you get kids, germy kids.
Exactly. So, that's one of the things that I know a lot of people who get colds a lot, and I think, gosh, like
you always must go there. Their first line of the immune system is screwed up. And the same thing with autoimmune disease. Leaky gut and autoimmune disease go hand in hand. Leaky gut and airborne allergies, leaky gut and food allergies, leaky gut and psoriasis, which is another autoimmune skin disease. There were some studies also that talked about chronic liver disease and pancreatic disease being linked to leaky gut. So, the research is out there. The issue that I think about our general, I have lots of people who come to me and they're like, oh, I've seen X amount of doctors and nobody figured me out. The thing is that we, as a system, overwork our doctors. And unfortunately, if you've been out of med school for 5 years now, a lot of the stuff you learned are obsolete, or, you got to keep up with the research. And the way to do that is to go to the conferences and to do research to go, you know, be with you and do research to come here and be prepared. Or, you know, I used to teach, I taught nutrition for many years, and that was another way for me to keep up with the research and the stuff. But, you know, when you're in a clinical practice, in a clinical setting, and you see 20, 30 patients a day, and then you got to go home and you have to have a life, I wouldn't have it in me either to, you know, go above and beyond to do all
Well,
this.
and if these physicians are seeing 20, 30 patients a day, their time between each patient.
Oh, the quality time is missing.
Yeah. So that's another thing too, that, you know, you can't get the questions answered, the topics covered in a 5 to 10 minute visit with your medical doctor. You know, if you're, I mean, I don't know. I've pretty much since I've had my son, you know, 4.5 years ago, our physicians have totally changed from Western medicine to anything but that. So our visits are different. You know, our visits are longer. Our visits are more in depth.
Focused on you and focused on your health and not your disease.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, that's, I don't know. I'm shout out to you, Mama, at being a nutritional therapist.
Yeah, I see you changed the why do people get it. So why do we get
why do they get it? Let's talk about it.
Lots of causes. It can be stress related. Stress causes the adrenal glands to overproduce cortisol and adrenaline, which are immune suppressant. It can be inflammatory related. You know, any inflammation that stresses the body will cause the adrenals to fire, blah, blah, blah. It can be caused by the food that we eat. It can be caused, as we talked in the nutrition, in the Digestion 101, by us not taking the time to properly chew our food. The food arrives in the stomach, and the stomach acid maybe are not at the appropriate pH because we've been on antacids, or because we smoke, or because we drink, or we eat the wrong kinds of food, or we eat too much and then we pop Tums as if they were Skittles.
Interesting that you said smoking.
Yes. Smoking and many medications destroy the lining of the intestines.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, smoking is pro-oxidant to the body, and it is an irritant. And a lot of people smoke on an empty stomach, which you know, makes them. It's also an appetite suppressant. It does change the pH of the digestive environment. Certain medication, mainly all the NSAIDs, all the aspirin, ibuprofen, Aleve, all of these, if you must take them, if you're injured and you need to deal with the pain, make sure that you take them on a full stomach, because they are destroyers of the gut lining. Alcohol, and anyone who needs to be on a leaky gut protocol.
You mean my wine?
I mean, that grape juice there needs to avoid alcohol for at least 2 to 3 months. Okay. Certain medications, the birth control pill could be cause, steroid medication, of course, all the NSAIDs, all the anti-inflammatories.
So a person with leaky gut can't smoke cigarettes, can't,
for example. Oh, they are doomed. They're gonna have a miserable life.
What the hell are they gonna do? I guess they'll get their medical marijuana card, maybe.
Let me see if there's yeast overgrowth. Yeast overgrowth is and SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, will also be irritating enough to cause a leaky gut. Lack of zinc, I said that, and of course, a poor diet. Not only the manner in which we eat, so chewing and an appropriate digestive pH, but, you know, a diet that's helpful. If we eat processed foods, if we eat sugars, if we eat junk, if we eat things that come out of a box all the time, that will also be, you know, it's not a nourishment anymore. It's an assault. And if you consider that the majority of the products, food stuff that's in the average American's home are all coming out of a box, you already know that we eat far and far from what our you know, great-great-grandparents ate 100 years ago. So we're eating food stuff that we have never been exposed to before. So not only We don't know how to process it in terms of extracting nutrients. But I believe that the majority of the junk food out there is an assault to the immune system, just because the immune system doesn't know what red dye number 5 is, or
and even sugar too. Like if I am just on a sugar overload type thing with my diet, and even it's not even it's dark chocolate, but too much of it is just everything in moderation for that type of stuff anyway. But when you sent me one of the articles, and I was reading about the toxin overload and also the bacterial imbalance, toxin overload, I thought it was interesting. Of course, antibiotics and pesticides. So those two definitely. Sometimes you can't. Hopefully, you can avoid antibiotics, but pesticides, eating organic would be the way to avoid that. But also tap water, and I think it's funny these days when people
chlorinated tap water.
Yeah, and some people
chlorinated, so it's our water sterilizes the gut every time you get a sip.
See, I can't even stand tap water.
Yeah.
We don't use it for anything in our house besides cleaning the dishes, and probably should be changed for that. But I know a lot of people who drink tap water and like it, and I'm just like, I am just not a tap water person anymore.
It tastes funny. Your body's telling you it tastes funny, which means it doesn't taste right.
Yeah.
I'm going to apologize with our viewers. My battery is dying, so I'm going to change room. Okay? You go ahead and finish your thought while I move around.
Yeah, the bacterial imbalance that I was reading about, we had done a hangout, and you have been on the panel for the microbirth film that we showed here in San Diego, and there it is again coming up, that if a mom has a C-section and that the baby is not passing through the vaginal canal, and that gut is not being set up to have that good gut flora. I mean, you and I understand this, but it's amazing that if that doesn't happen, if our babies aren't born vaginally, then there's ways too that they're figuring out, and I think it should be protocol for the babies to get the swab of the vaginal fluids. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but it's more and more coming to light that this is something that is hurting our society as a whole, as far as like immunity goes. And so it kind of makes sense too with our own internal immunity, and our for people of getting leaky gut, for it to be an imbalance of bacteria. So we need good bacteria, we need bad bacteria in order for us to keep going and going in a good way. So the next thing then, and it's kind of the last thing, although it's kind of a big one, is how can we heal if we've got this leaky gut? And I was really happy to read some of the healing foods, which I'm sure you can name them off quickly, but that a lot of them we already have in our family here in our house. So it was kind of like, yes.
Validating.
Yes, exactly. But so what are the steps that you would say for one of your patients?
Well, so the first thing to do is always to look at what's irritating the body that's coming from external sources, and how to remove it. So alcohol, as I said before, has to go. People who are taking NSAIDs,
mm-hmm.
We need to assess that. I don't know that I mentioned it, but there are the medication that are used for arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis can cause the gut to become leaky in only 2 weeks from starting the therapy. And the leaky gut then exacerbates the symptoms and the pain of the arthritis. So, if somebody has arthritis, also reassess the medication. And I think, you know, as a nutritionist, I cannot take people off their meds, but they can work with their physician towards finding better. And I'm sorry, I had to move into my bedroom so Liam doesn't see me.
It's okay. No, it looks fine, hun. No worries.
And so working with their physician to see what other alternatives there are, which there's a ton of natural alternatives for arthritis and arthritis pain too. And there are some great functional doctors in you know, in the San Diego area, but in California, and people can work with me via Skype. They can work with a doctor via Skype. I always suggest, depending on symptoms, if there's a lot of GI distress, I will suggest a comprehensive stool digestive analysis or a SIBO, depending on what the symptoms look like, to see if together with the leaky gut, we're also facing a dysbiotic condition, a yeast infection, a parasite, or anything like that, because it'll change the course of action, especially in terms of nutrients and or medication. And then what I do in my practice is I advise my clients, my patients, if I'm in the clinic, to utilize an anti-inflammatory diet. And then, of course, for anyone willing to go the extra mile, I'm going to say a healing diet. So a healing diet would have foods that are high in collagen, glucosamine, and chondroitin, and L-glutamine, which are the substances that can quickly heal and repair the gut. Now, you need to know that the lining of the small intestine is shed and renewed every 3 days. Okay, so if we were to do a gut healing protocol, I think that we would be starting seeing some good results in a matter of a week, a few weeks. The issue is that it takes a long time to heal the immune system. And that's why people get frustrated and they'll be like, oh, I've been drinking bone broth for a month and, you know, I still have this and I still have that. Well, once the damage is done to the body, you know, we can't expect to be healing overnight. We do know that certain parts of the body renew themselves fairly quickly, but we can't expect for the body to just bounce back after 3 cups of bone broth. So anyway, bone broth is a huge, you know, Jewish penicillin. It's a wonderful superfood for gut lining. It's actually a wonderful superfood also for arthritis and any sort of joint pain, because those glucosamine and chondroitin and the collagen, they all go nourish also those joints. And
I have my bone broth cooking right now.
Oh, I can smell it from here. Foods high in zinc, which is a big component of leaky gut. Of course, you know, the issue with the healing diets is that we remove a lot. We remove the sugars, we remove the processed, we remove the whites, we remove the, you know, the vegetable oils that I wish wouldn't exist. We remove trans fatty acids. We remove everything that can be irritating and everything that it takes a lot of effort from the body to break down. Okay, so usually what you really want, you want food that's easy to digest, pre-digested. That's why we use a lot of fermented foods that have been pre-digested by the cultures and broken down. So fermented foods like sauerkrauts, like the kimchi. If there's not a casein allergy or lactose intolerance, the homemade 24-hour fermented yogurt. I mean, we're talking about people who are very sick and are very committed to their health. The average bear who's watching the show is probably thinking, oh my God, I'm going to culture my yogurt for 24 hours. You don't have to, and I have resources so that my clients don't have to. I have also resources so that they can buy the bone broth without having to make it themselves, and they can buy the sauerkrauts without having to make it themselves. Of course, when you use those resources, the diet becomes costly, but you know, it's an investment in your health. And if you're too sick to do it or you're too busy to do it, there's definitely, I never you know, leave somebody saying, go find your boar, you know, hunt it down. kill
Who's
it
your
and then boil
resource
it.
for your, I'm interested to know your sauerkraut resource.
Oh, the best place is Farmers Market, Mark, the
Happy
pantry.
Pantry.
Yeah, the
Happy.
Happy
Yep.
Pantry. And
Yep.
he makes amazing ones. He doesn't use whey as a starter. He uses salt, which is fine. There are some good brands at the health food store too, Jimbo's and Whole Foods locally here.
Yeah.
A Vital Choice also has, which is an online retailer of wild caught fish and all sorts of sustainably farmed and wild caught canned fish. And they also have smoked fish. It's a very, very good
Nice.
resource for that, especially for people who don't live near, areas that you have good fish there.
Like
They
us, we're
also
so
have some
blessed.
sauerkraut. I mean, honestly, the sauerkraut, it's the easiest thing to make. All you have to do is shred cabbage, pound it down, and then you put it in a crock with, if you want to use whey, you use whey as a starter. Otherwise, you use salt, and you just leave it there, and it does its own.
Yeah, it is easy. I think it's
It's learning a new skill.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
once
definitely.
people learn it, they see that it was not that much. Yes, when you are cooking your own food and you're fermenting and you're making bone broth, there's a lot of cleanup to do, which I think that's the worst thing for people. We're not used to that. We're not used to walking in the kitchen and having all those pots and pans.
Yeah.
And I think
When I do
that's,
my bone
we're
broth,
lazy.
I get to the end of it and I'm like, oh God, okay, now I gotta put all this together, jar it, and then I gotta clean everything up. And but yeah, it's kind of a labor of love for me for my bone broth. But definitely, I will go to Happy Pantry and get my sauerkraut. And he also has great
Kombucha.
yes, kombucha. We just got a good one this past weekend.
Well, you can buy bone broth too. I mean, I always have some frozen bone broth in the freezer for when I come home from travel, if somebody's sick and whatever. And I do buy some from, there's actually a local company, and it's the owner, the chef's wife, she was one of my students in nutrition school, and they sell their broth locally in San Diego, but also through an online retailer, which is called Wise Choice Market.
Okay.
So wisechoicemarket.com, and it has a bunch of other foods. It's another very good GAPS, Weston A. Price Paleo approved online retailer. And I purchased some broths through them. There's also in San Diego, I don't know if you've ever heard of Pete's Paleo, which is a meal delivery service that it's all paleo, organic, sustainable, local.
No.
Of frozen meals. So that's another resource that I have for people who don't have time to cook, cannot cook, blah, blah, blah. And they also have a gut healing package. So very good bone broth, chicken stock. I mean, you can choose. And then if you want to go to your local butcher, Hart and Trotter on El Cajon and not 30th, but it's in North Park. They have an amazing duck broth. Amazing.
Duck broth?
Yes.
Ooh.
Really good. Yeah.
See, I've done chicken.
In the house, and we had just come home from a trip, and I ran there and I made soup 4 days. And I was grateful that I didn't have, I just got home after a 7-hour flight. I don't want to make bone broth tonight.
Yeah.
But I was able to go and find it locally,
That's
so
awesome.
It's really nice.
I'll have to try that. I've done chicken and I've done beef, but I haven't done
one.
What's that?
Oxtail is another good one. Oxtail, yeah, especially for healing the intestinal lining, because it's such it's more like a joint structure. So there's all of those good glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate and all of the collagen and gelatin from the joint. So it's super healing.
Yeah.
So diet. And then we talk supplements. When we do leaky gut, L-glutamine is a big one. L-glutamine is the largest amino acid in the body. It's very good for intestinal lining health. It's very good for cravings. So people who need to change their diet to heal their gut, it's a twofer. You know, it helps rebuild the gut and it helps the craving subside. Definitely zinc therapy. More research studies than not show high vitamin D deficiency in everyone who's got leaky gut that was tested. So I always want to see the blood work to know exactly how to supplement. But that's another big one, another number one. And also vitamin D, it's a big modulator of the immune system, same way as zinc is. Then, of course, you know, anyone, in my opinion, should be on a whole food-based multivitamin, mineral, and high-dose fish oil to reduce the inflammatory load and help calm the immune system for sure.
What would be high dose to you?
What I tell people, so the labels are made for somebody of 150 pounds, pretty much, right? So what I say is read the label and double it. Of course, if you're working on a child, you need to make the math and the conversion. You know, if the dose is 3 capsules for an adult, it will be 1 capsule for a 50-pound child, right?
Right.
Okay, we don't want to overdose kids. So just always remember, usually the doses that are written on the bottles of the supplements are more of a maintenance dose than a therapeutic dose.
Okay.
The beauty of working with a therapist is that then they will customize the dose based on your weight, your condition, and of course the products I use may have a different strength than what's outside.
I was
outside in the
taking
market,
fish
I'm gonna
oil.
say, yeah, like a 2,000 milligrams would be a good start.
Okay. Yeah, I was taking a lot of fish oil when I was breastfeeding for years and years and years. And when recently my midwife and I were talking about it, and I had been taking like 4 times what she would be recommending. And then, you know, she was like, why were you on that much? I'm like, well, we upped it, you know, way back when. So it's since that happened, I was like interested, just wanted to know about, you know, what would a normal fish oil, you know, amount be for somebody just
600
normally.
and 1,000 for maintenance. But you know, there's an inflammatory condition. Omega-3 is a precursor to prostaglandin of the anti-inflammatory family. So you need higher doses. Also, you know, you eat a pretty good diet that not the majority of people follow. If somebody's eating the standard American diet, they are eating so many omega-6s that, you know, you do have to supplement.
Right.
I hear my
well, we're pretty much done, Mama. Yeah. If you need to go, totally go. I mean, we covered a lot.
Steve, can you open? Hold on. Can you open the door? Let him come.
Yeah.
Because this just wants some boob.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. This is what it's all about. So,
hi, my love.
Pretty much, you know, when we're talking about healing, you
that's
know,
Mary Jane.
Hey, honey.
Her.
Hi. Oh, he's getting so big. Look at you and all your hair. Cutie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have some milk. Go ahead, buddy. Yeah, we're done, Mama. I mean, we talked about healing, removing food, and then replacing it with healing food, repairing it with supplements, and also probiotics, from what I read, was a pretty big one.
Probiotic, and if there's yeast overgrowth, then a beneficial yeast also.
Yeah.
In terms of a Saccharomyces boulardii.
There's lots of things too, you know, with removing and replacing for, it's not that scary that when you think about it, like replacing sugar, like if you're totally taking it out and you can, you know, have like honey or maple syrup, you know, and grains for us, we've changed from, you know, just your traditional wheat to, you know, beans and coconut flour and nuts. And so there's all sorts of ways that, like, you know, work with your nutritional therapist to be able to figure out what.
We definitely like substitutions. I don't like people to feel deprived. That's for sure. Of course, if we're fighting a debilitating illness or condition, the diet will have to be stricter in the beginning. But
Yes.
you know, we always bring the body back into homeostasis, and once we reach a maintenance phase, then we have an opportunity to experiment with more helpful sweeteners, as you said, the maple
Exactly.
syrup, the raw honey, and then you know, what a lot to be tailored on the person. Some people can afford to have a little bit more, some people can't. Some people can afford to use dry fruit as a sweetener. Some people can do a little bit, you know, more
Yeah.
honey. So
Yeah, you have to,
definitely.
everybody's different. That's the thing too. You can't just
Well,
say,
I like to work on the emotions
yeah,
that also surround food. So why is it that you must have it, and what is that food doing for you? You know.
yep,
And what is your past? We are a nation of, you know, disorder eating people, or people
yeah,
affected by a national eating disorder, the way I like to say it. So if there's much more about food that's just calories and nutrients. There's a lot of emotions. There's love, there's punishment, there's boredom, there's rewarding, there's a coping, there's numbing, there's dissociating. I mean, there's a lot. So
yeah,
once we figure out what are the drives behind certain cravings that are not just the physiological ones, because sugar is an addiction, you know. But
yes,
when I work with
definitely.
people who detox from sugar for 4 months, but they're still craving it, then it's the emotional crutch, you know, then other work needs to be done there.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize that you know the emotional connection to food. They know how it makes them feel good, but they don't really realize like what exactly it is that got them to that feeling. So you know that's why I love you know all the people that I have come into contact with as far as nutritionally. They're not. It's not just about food. It's about you know like you said the emotions. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, nutritional therapists are kind of all encompassing. You know, the more that I get out of Western medicine, the more that I realize that, you know, you if you take time with your patients and you can kind of figure things out and work through things, then it's so helpful in the long run, just for so
Right.
many different reasons.
Well, and I
So
do a lot of eating disorders in my practice, and it would be pointless to give people a diet when they have a food issue. You know,
yeah,
eating disorders are about control, they're not about food per se. So, uh, of course, it depends on the person, the eating disorder, and everything, but you really need to work the emotions around food, and teaching the person what can be safe for them or not.
yeah,
You know, it's not just,
definitely.
oh, eat this or take that supplement. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Mama. I know you got to get back to your boy
He kept
and
saying, she's nice. She's nice.
oh, he's so sweet.
Yeah.
I haven't
You
seen him
haven't
in
seen him in
person.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just seen all the pictures though. He's getting so big. It's nice to see him in person. Well,
Apparently,
on
we're
the
dealing with a poopy diaper, but somebody does not want to change him. And
Uh-oh.
he's saying it's a required skill set.
We'll stay on the hangout a little longer then, so
I
that
know,
someone else
right?
can change.
I don't
No,
want to know how long that poop has been there. Liam.
all right. Well, we'll end this and just hang on for just a second, and I'm
Of
going to stop
course.
the broadcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Always a
Oh,
pleasure seeing you.
yes, always a pleasure
Yeah,
seeing you. And next time we'll have wine in person.
absolutely. Yes, yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and check out nutritional therapist Francesca Orlando, Healthful Living San Diego. Check out her on Facebook, check out her website, and check out our last hangout about digestion too after you watch this one. So thank you guys.